All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm in my home of the internet, as I always am these days for the foreseeable future. And I'm talking to someone who has not been on the podcast before, but has been doing this music thing, I gather, for a very long time. So I think that the best way to kick things off here is if you want to introduce yourself and just give a bit of background about your band and what it is that you guys do.
Hi, I'm Ben Rush. I'm the drummer for the band Providence. We're a Winnipeg prog rock band trio. We've been at it for quite a long time, actually. We just released our debut album last November,
Right.
On a digital worldwide release. And this Friday will be the first year anniversary for the CD release of our debut album, The Demon Haunted World.
And how long has the band actually been a band? Because from what I was reading, it sounds like it goes back a few decades here, eh?
Yeah, the band started in the probably around the 94-ish.
Okay.
And then we did shows around the city back in places that don't exist anymore, like
Sure,
the Portage Village Inn and Wellington's,
Right.
those places way back in the day. But yeah, we ended up taking an 8-year hiatus from one another just to pursue different musical directions. And then a few years after that, we decided we'd do a reunion gig, just one more time with the original members of the band.
Sure.
And see where that would take us. So we did it, and it was well received, and we're really happy with the results. And we decided at that point we would continue on as a band. And we just started recording after a while, picking up where we left off back in the day. But we were graced with, in those past 8 years, graduating from 4-track cassette technology for multi-tracking to a DAW, which made life a lot easier for us for recording.
And sounds better too, right? I mean, the technology has advanced enough that it's easier and the sound is greatly improved. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. Like back in the day, we I think the ideas were far too ambitious for the gear that we had, because we had like these 4 tracks, right? So whenever we wanted to punch in and do overdubs, every time you did an overdub with these old cassette multi-trackers, you'd introduce a bunch of tape noise and stuff like that. And
For sure.
Each generation of overdubs just got noisier and noisier. And now with these digital audio workstations, a DAW, you can have an infinite number of tracks, no noise, and you're just limited by the computational ability of the machine you're using.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I can totally relate to the noise thing, because I was in the late 90s, I was in a band with 10 people in it, and we recorded on a 4-track, and it sounded good at the time because we were teenagers or whatever, and it was like, oh, this is great. But, in retrospect, it's just so noisy and dirty, and it loses a little bit every time you added another horn on or another keyboard or whatever. Yeah, so I know the pain for sure. So,
yeah, I could relate to that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a long time. Despite the hiatus, it's still a very long time for this band to have existed. So, I guess between the three of you, what is it that works? Like, what has made this project kind of last as long as it has? Because a lot of people, especially since you're not playing a ton of shows, you're not touring, things like that, a lot of people would just pack it in by then, right? So there's obviously something that works between the three of you that makes you want to keep doing this.
The three of us are really, really good friends. We share an affinity for science, history, art, music. We have the same crazy sense of humor. It really is the best working relationship I could possibly hope for. The two other guys in the band are my two best friends.
Cool.
And so when we get together and hang out with all this junk behind me, we get together, we knock back a few beers, eat some cheese, and hang out, eat some chips, and maybe we might record a noise or two. Or we might just spend the entire evening talking about a new film from Ridley Scott, or talk about a Star Trek episode or something, or talk about the Higgs boson at the Large Hadron Collider.
Yeah.
We're all science nerds, right? Like
I can tell by the album too. I mean, the album is, and I want to get into this a little bit deeper too. But I mean, it's named after a Carl Sagan book, right? And it's even just the song titles are all very much science, and like the sound of it too. It's got that kind of cosmic sort of vibe to it, and so that I think comes through. Has that always been sort of something you've as a band have naturally gravitated towards in terms of your music, like just having those kind of influences coming through?
Well, the influences, I think, came from what we grew up listening to. I mean, the three of us, because we're older fellows,
Yeah.
we grew up listening to bands like Yes, Genesis,
Okay.
Rush, King Crimson, and Pink Floyd, and these influences will color any kind of creative endeavor that the band would do.
Definitely.
Like we'd sit down and start writing tunes, and we'd be like, yeah, remember what the so and so band did with this song. It's kind of cool. It reminds me of this and that, or it's not even that overt. Sometimes it's almost subconscious. You just end up writing a tune, and then after you listen to it, when you assemble all the tracks and everything, and listen to the playback, it's like, wow, that sounds kind of King Crimson like,
Sure.
or this part sounds like Tool, or this part sounds like Pink Floyd.
Right. It just seeps
But
in whether you want it to or not.
totally. And insofar as lyrics, we wrote the lyrics without actually having studied Carl Sagan's book at the time. It, it it became really evident afterwards that when we had the majority of the album written, that we found there was a theme running through it,
Okay.
and a lot of the song lyrics and concepts that we're exploring kind of were metaphors, or like a reflection of some of the concepts that were covered in Carl's book, which is like you said, it's called The Demon Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark,
Right.
where Carl is exploring the dumbing down of the population, and how we live in a highly technological society, but so few people understand the science behind the technology, and so few people are interested in understanding it, and so few people are interested in critical thinking, that we've run into a dangerous situation. That he projected this in 1995 when the book
Yeah.
was written. It would probably be very shocking for him to see just how prophetic his writings were when you look now in
Yeah.
2020, especially
Unfortunately, right?
after
Yeah.
with the pandemic and people anti-vaxxing, anti-masking, the whole Trump alternative facts,
Yeah.
it's just really. I think Carl would be gobsmacked, and like I said, when we sorted out all the lyrics and looked at the some of the concepts, whether they were metaphorical or direct, like there was such a parallel to what Carl was writing to what we were writing, and so we ended up adopting the name of his book for our album, because I think it really struck a chord with us. Pardon the pun.
Well, I guess on a similar note to the the dumbing down of people's, well, just people in general. I mean, music has also undergone a form of dumbing down in the sense that a large overarching project like your album, where there's a concept and it flows as a larger piece of music, that's not very common anymore, unfortunately. Again, I mean, I love hearing concept albums. I love hearing something that's intended to be listened to from track one, side A, to the final track on side B, and you have to sit there and just take it all in. But we're in a world now where that's not really valued, and everything is on shuffle, and everything is a 10-second soundbite. So I'm assuming that the answer for you guys is that you just don't care. But does that come into play at all? Worrying about the fact that people's attention spans are maybe not there for a big epic prog journey, whereas 40 years ago, 30 years ago, that was the norm and everyone was okay with it. But now everyone's so just like, I need to hear this, and I need to immediately switch to the next thing. Did that come into play at all, or you just figure whatever, we'll do what we want?
And Carl Sagan noted that what was it, whatever it was, 20 years ago, that the usual soundbite to capture somebody's attention was 30 seconds.
Right.
And just before he passed away, he noted that 30 seconds had been downgraded to 10 seconds.
Sure.
So you have 10 seconds to get your message across. So yeah, there's the attention span has really, really decreased. But to answer your question, we didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
That's the long and short of it.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
The great thing about having your own studio, having your own gear, having your own record label, and your own agenda is that you can throw caution to the wind and be entirely artistic. The album, you won't find a director's cut of our album because it is a director's cut.
Right,
We
right.
didn't have anybody looking over his shoulder saying, hey, this needs to be under 3 minutes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or anything like that. We weren't out to write pop songs. We were out to write music that meant something to us. And again, to go a little further on this point, we're not alone in this boat, because I was reading something in some other prog magazine. Stephen Wilson from the Porcupine Tree, and his own a solo artist in his own right, very proggy,
Okay.
very cool dude. He made the same observation of his work, which is really proggy and stuff. And he decided early on that, like, prog fans like this kind of thing. They get into concept albums and will take the time to listen to something from side A to side Z.
Yeah, right, because you had 5 or 6. Yeah.
Right. We're cool with that. We know that prog music can be a hard sell. But as Baz, our guitar player, vocalist, and keyboardist, pointed out, prog may be a hard sell, but it's a slow sell, and the fans that you get are really loyal, and they really get into what you're doing. And we're starting to see that slowly. A year out after our release, we're starting to generate interest in the most unsuspected places,
Cool.
Mexico, Brazil, Poland, and so on. It's really cool to see that, especially, back when we were recording on a 4-track, we had no idea that we'd even have a chance in hell of getting our music outside of the city, really.
Sure. Yeah.
And now with these digital platforms, you can get your music worldwide with a click of a key, right? Which is kind of cool. But
It's very cool. Yeah.
Personally, I've always liked the idea of having a CD or some physical copy of something. So I got a media room full of albums and CDs.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm on the same page there for sure. Yeah. So. What is the? I guess what was the appeal of prog for you in the first place? Like, I as you said, you're a little older. That was obviously something that was happening in earnest, probably at the time you started listening to it, I assume. But I mean, for me, I definitely got into some of that kind of stuff later on. When I was, a teenager, I was into punk rock, and prog was like a swear word. The idea of anything, the goal was to be under 2 minutes and as fast and aggressive as possible. Otherwise, it didn't matter, right? So, I mean, it definitely took some listening, some deep listening on my part to fully, appreciate some of that stuff. So I definitely came into it as an adult. But what was your sort of introduction to prog?
My introduction to prog came from friends who were listening to bands like Rush.
Okay.
I think that was my first taste of prog rock, and at the time, I think Moving Pictures had just been released at that time, and I heard the song Tom Sawyer for the first time. Then I started listening to some of the other tracks from the album. I thought, wow, these guys are really out there. This is really cool. And at the time, I was a young kid, and I thought, wow, this metal is very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And back then, a band like Rush was pretty heavy. Like metal now isn't anything like metal was back then. To me, Rush was metal, it was hard rock. But the thing that appealed to me as a drummer was that it wasn't just 4 on the floor beat kind of thing. It was like, if you listen to the song Tom Sawyer, it's not a 4/4 song. It's not a common time. It's in 7. Who the hell writes a song in 7 and makes it that almost danceable? Like,
right.
It's pretty amazing to have that kind of feel to write songs and odd time signatures that actually move along without sounding clunky like a flat tire.
Sure. But I guess
there was a.
No, go ahead.
Well, after I was got into Rush, I started getting into King Crimson. Again, my guitar player introduced me to King Crimson. Baz, who's still our guitar player to this day. So you can see how we've been together for such a long time.
Yeah.
We close such close bonds. But he introduced me to King Crimson, and those guys were really out there. Like the level of musicianship just was mind blowing. I too enjoy punk immensely, like old school punk, like Black Flag and Feeders and Dead Kennedys and stuff. And so I listened to that stuff as well. I guess the three of us have always had fairly well-rounded musical tastes, but we've always found that prog rock, either when we were covering it or trying to emulate it, pushed our musical abilities to the limit. and I find that prog rock still does that for me.
Okay.
I have to sit down and actually learn how to space out the drums, how to hold back, how to give it full force, and how to play in these weird time signatures that, some of them are like, I still haven't figured out what some of those time signatures I'm playing in. Sometimes you're just like, okay, you play what feels right, and if it works, great. You give yourself a tap on the shoulders.
Yeah.
I guess that's part of the luxury of playing in a band where the two other guys are probably light years beyond me in skill. Like Baz and Bob are amazing musicians and really skilled songwriters. I have nothing but admiration for my two friends.
Well, that was kind of my next question. Is kind of relates to what you just said. Is because to go back to the punk rock thing. I mean, you can pick up a guitar, learn 3 chords, you have a band. You can play a show tomorrow, right? But I mean, it's one thing to appreciate prog rock and to listen to records, but then to actually be able to play at that level. I mean, you mentioned Rush. I mean, that's a band with, especially on drums, you have a very big shoes to fill when even trying to come close to learning those songs, right? So I feel like it probably takes a certain type of person to be willing to say, yeah, I'm going to actually play this rather than I'm going to listen to this and just play something a little easier, right?
Well, for me, it's, you can play easier stuff, definitely, and have a lot of fun with it. I played in cover bands for years when I was
I think you cut out.
younger, and had a lot of fun with it. Rush and King Crimson and stuff like that. We have covered Rush tunes like YYZ and Distant Early Warning and that kind of thing. But with Rush, you actually have to sit down, break the song down, and learn the bits. And if you can't learn the bits, at least try to figure something out that works, that's within your skill set. Like I would never come on to any show and say, hey man, I've covered a Rush tune, I'm the best drummer ever. Far from it. I've got so much to learn. And the more you start dissecting other people's music and stuff like that, the more you learn that you really know nothing. And that thirst for bettering yourself and finding other skills for playing your drums or guitar, keyboards or whatever, keeps your brain fresh and it keeps it from turning to mush, especially at my age. And I think I speak for Baz and Bob too. Like they're in the same school. They'll sit down and figure out Tool songs and bring it to the studio here. And it's like, holy shit, what are these guys doing? And it really is a mental workout. And I find it quite gratifying.
So finally releasing this record, I mean, and now, like you said, people are hearing it in places you never would have expected. Has that sort of inspired you guys to start recording more and potentially working on a follow-up? Or are you content with the sort of, glacial pace that you've been going on for the past couple decades?
Yeah, we'll be on tour in another 50 years or so with another record release.
Yeah.
But the whole COVID thing really threw a wrench into it because my mom is getting up there in age and Bob's in-laws are of the same age with some health issues. So we actually haven't sat in this studio since last March.
Oh, wow.
Which to me is heartbreaking, but necessary. We decided early on that we wanted to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So we socially isolated as hard as it's been. And it's never for a moment lost to me how hard it's been because they are my closest friends, my musical collaborators. It's been incredibly hard, like heartbreakingly hard. And I hope that this COVID pandemic sorts out sooner than later. So we, in 25 years, we can get that next record made and maybe play a gig or two. when we're not yet in wheelchairs and walkers.
Or at least if you are, get enough stage effects that no one will notice, right?
That's what we usually do, right?
Right. I read that.
When we have done shows, we hide behind lights and fog and everything else, and so we kind of adapted the lighting theatrics of some of my favorite bands. Where I think it was Tool. When I saw Tool or Nine Inch Nails, I think it was Nine Inch Nails. Excuse me. They were backlit, so you just saw silhouettes on the stage and a bunch.
That was
of
Tool when they were
stuff.
here. When Tool was here a few years ago, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought, wow, the three of us are getting up there in age. We're nothing to look at. So look at our weird lights and our projections and our lasers and crap. Listen to the
Yeah.
music. Don't look at us. Don't look at us.
Yeah.
But that worked out rather nicely. So
Well, it
maybe
makes it
maybe we
more
can
of an
hide.
experience too, right? It makes it more like for the
Yeah.
people watching, it's not just some guys, especially with something that's technically complicated. You guys are going to be presumably like jumping around and thrashing about the stage, right? So this at least gives something to focus on that I'm also assuming relates to the music in a way with the lights and the fog and stuff. I'm sure you have that, planned out enough so it's not just random chaos. Or is
Well,
it?
it's partly random chaos to hide the fact that we're sitting in wheelchairs and walkers.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah, we were inspired in our live shows to keep it kind of a multimedia effect, and we didn't want to just be another really weird bar band, because
Yeah.
we knew we were going to fit that paradigm anyway. God knows we tried back in the day, and we didn't. But when we use a venue like, for example, the Masonic Temple at 420 Cordon,
Yeah.
no coincidence there, 420.
Right, right, right.
Anyway, when we use that venue, we could set it up how we wanted it. We set up a stage, a PA. We got the lighting rig set up and
Yeah.
everything. So we took all the time we needed. We set up exactly how we wanted it. And we had the projections and all the effects that we wanted to make a full-on concert experience for the people who came to the show, which they all thought was pretty cool.
That is cool, yeah. Well, and I noticed that your music videos too that you've put out are very they're not. I guess you would say they're not the typical music video. There's some interesting visuals happening in those as well.
Nothing about the band is typical.
Right,
I
right.
would say, right down from the music, the lyrics, the recording process, and so on. The videos, because the band is kind of in a self-quarantine state. We are in our own temporal stasis. we don't have the ability to set up ourselves on stage and
Sure.
and do a typical music video. So we had to think outside the box. And so I looked at sort of the approach that bands like Pink Floyd and Tool took for some of their videos, and to try to not just tell the story of the lyrics and the music, but to take it a step further and maybe interpret it slightly different. So you have the music as one aspect of the experience, the lyrics, and then the visuals to go with it. And all of it are parts of a puzzle that combine to form a totally immersive experience.
Cool.
Which is what we were after.
So, assuming no one knows when the pandemic's ending, but if it ended like next week, what would be the first thing you guys would do? Would you want to get jamming immediately, or would you want to sort of put together a show? Like, what's sort of the next step, assuming there is a next step for anyone?
If the pandemic were to end right now, the first step would be get together, get a couple of beers into us, reacquaint ourselves with the gear that's sitting in here. That's been literally just sitting in here. I've been noodling around with it a little bit, but we would get rehearsing again. When the pandemic started and the lockdown started last March, we were starting to rehearse, and we already had some pre-production notes and stuff like that, and stuff like starting to lay down the groundwork for a CD release, which we still haven't done.
Sure.
We were kind of robbed of that with the pandemic. So we really got the double whammy with this whole CD release. Like it was just bad timing.
Yeah.
So we're trying to claw our way out of this abyss that no band really wants to find themselves in when they release a brand new album, especially a debut album.
For sure. Yeah.
So yeah, if the pandemic were to end right now, we would be getting gangbusters to hurry up and get some gigs lined up and to try to get the message out there that we're ready to start touring this album.
Cool. So if someone's hearing this and they're hearing about your band for the first time, what's the best way they can find out more? I mean, because it's a podcast, they could hear it next week, or they could hear it a year from now. So, and by then, hopefully, pandemic's over. You guys are playing shows, maybe you're recording new stuff. What's the best way to kind of keep in touch and find out where you're at?
At this moment, I think probably Facebook. We've been using Facebook just as a social media tool and stuff like that. We have stuff on Bandcamp and Apple Music and Spotify and whatnot. We also have physical copies of the album too that are available. We ship worldwide.
Cool.
That's not a problem. But yeah, I think Facebook, if like for news blurbs and stuff like that, that'd probably be the best way to go. Our YouTube channel has just the videos on there. Really, I haven't posted any like band anything other than
Yeah.
the videos that we've been producing here. Everything that we have done has been done right here. The recording, the artwork, the mix down, the mastering, the
Cool.
videos, everything has been done right here at Studio Aaron House.
And then the physical, I mean, I know stores aren't really open yet either because of the pandemic, but in Manitoba anyway, right? So, I mean, I assume you can, I think I saw it at Sunrise, you know, in the before time. So it's out there, right? People can get hold of it.
Oh yeah. If you visit any of the Winnipeg Sunrise Records, you'll find our album there. You'll find it at McNally Booksellers at Grant Park.
Cool.
You'll find it at Into the Music. And like I said, you can pick up copies by just shooting us a note, you know, and I can have it mailed out to you, no problem.
Awesome.